Hey friends, it's Randy. I'm live. It's Sunday at 2 o'clock, and it's that time for us to start talking a little bit about planning weddings and the things that get you a little nervous and all that kind of stuff. So, I'm hoping that we'll get a lot of questions and interaction today. Last week, we actually had a couple people that signed on and asked me some good questions. So if they're not coming back today, I hope we have some new people that join us and ask us lots and lots of good questions so that this half hour goes by pretty fast, but also is very informative about things that you want to hear about. So do me a favor, when you come on, just let me know that you're here, that you can hear what I'm saying, and let me know if you're a bride or the mother of a bride or a groom or a bridesmaid or wherever you may be in the wedding planning for your special event. So just to give you a little background while I'm waiting for some people to sign on, my name is Randy Martin. I am the Chief Event Planner for Trilogy Event Design. We're located in suburban Philadelphia in Hatboro. We are a full-service wedding and event planning company. And I pretty much know a good amount about weddings. So I've been planning weddings for 11 years. I'm the featured expert on the Boucher Bridal Productions wedding and event shows. So I'm sorry, it's a bridal show. So the bridal shows by Boucher Productions is where I'm a featured speaker. So I do speak during the fall and spring seasons about planning weddings, and I'll be doing the same thing here for you guys in my series of wedding planning Q&A sessions, just to continue with that momentum. So we have a lot of people that attend the bridal shows. They tell me that they love what I'm telling them about planning their wedding, so I wanted to make sure that I am broadening my audience during the time period where we're not doing bridal shows. So one of the things that I decided that we would talk about today are some of the disasters that can happen during your wedding planning. Let's just say that you haven't planned a wedding before. You're not really sure what to look out for. So there are some things that I just want to give you a heads up about. And it really, really helps that you have appointed somebody to be that person, your point of contact, or the person who manages all the troubleshooting for things that could go wrong, so that you as the bride or groom do not have to be dealing with a lot of those issues. Like, for example, if the owner of the venue doesn't unlock the doors in time for your setup to start, well, you're somewhere else getting ready for your wedding, so you don't necessarily know that there's a delay in getting those things done. And nobody should be calling you. Like, let's just say your florist can't get in to make the delivery. They shouldn't be calling you to tell you that. There should be another point of contact who then calls the venue owner or whoever is responsible for unlocking the doors, right? So those are some of the things that we are going to talk about today. But again, this is an interactive Q&A session. So if there's something else that you want to talk about and you have a question, feel free to type it down there in the comments, and as I see them, I will answer them. So I did notice a couple people popping in and out. That's fine, because this is a recorded session, so the recording will be posted on our Facebook page shortly after we wrap up here. So let's just start talking and see where we get to. One of the things that has actually been an experience of mine, and I'll tell you a few little anecdotal things, but there was once a wedding where my assistant was at the reception hall, and she was helping to prepare things for the reception while the ceremony was going on at a different location. So the DJ showed up and started setting up his equipment, and unfortunately, while he was setting up his equipment, he had a heart attack. So my assistant calls me and says, "Oh my God, this is what happened. The DJ had a heart attack. What am I going to do?" And I said, well, first call 911. You know, the first thing is to make sure that he's okay. But then we need to figure out how we're going to get somebody else to replace him. So the venue was actually thinking, you know, they would pipe in some music or connect somebody's iPhone to their sound system or something like that. But as a professional wedding planner, I have an arsenal of professionals that I can actually call on whenever I need them. So I just made a phone call to a DJ that I knew was available or that wasn't working an event that day, and just asked him if he was able to get to this particular location by this time, and he was. So with a quick phone call, we got a replacement DJ, and the payment for that replacement DJ actually is not the concern of the bride and groom, because they already paid the one DJ. So they don't have to worry about paying the replacement too. That is actually something that was handled behind the scenes between me and the two DJs, so that I made sure that they were taken care of. But the bride and groom didn't have to worry about not having music, not having the proper songs played at the right time, and things like that, which would have happened if their somebody's iPhone was connected to the sound system. So it's really important to have somebody else be your point of contact. Just imagine if at that time the venue coordinator or the facility manager would have been the only person that was available to make that decision without having somebody be the point of contact or the troubleshooter. And they did connect an iPhone, or, you know, trusted that somebody was going to have the right songs on the iPhone. And then who's going to be the person that's responsible for hitting play on that phone for that song to be played, like for your first dance, or for your dance with your father, or the groom's dance with his mother? You know, there is a lot to say about technology and the ability to have music on a portable device, but you still need to have a person who's responsible for doing those things. So, you know, the iPhone option is not always the best option. So, you know, that's just one scenario of something, of an example of something that could go wrong, and a reason why you need to have either a hired professional planner to be your point person that day, or if, you know, it's just not in your budget. I realize that not everybody has it in their budget to have a wedding planner. So maybe you just have a friend, a close friend or family member. Now, they should not pretend to be a wedding coordinator, but they should just say that they're your point person. And they are not going to want to dance or eat or really socialize at your wedding, because their responsibility is to make sure that everything goes according to your plan. Not so much that they're having fun at your wedding. So if you don't know anybody that's not going to want to have fun at your wedding, then it is feasible for you to actually hire somebody. So I do see that I have a couple people, and I just want to say hi to you. Thank you for joining my Facebook Live conversation right now. Tell me who's here. Just say hey, Randy, in the comments so that I can give you a shout out. And let me know if you're a bride, a groom, a member of the wedding party, or if you're another wedding professional. I welcome you all too. So, hey, hi Gwen, good to see you, and Melanie, wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. So I was just kind of talking about some things that go wrong during a wedding, like some of the potential disasters. But if there's anything that you guys have questions about, feel free to post your questions, and, you know, we can have some interactive conversations. So I was just telling a story about one time that there was a DJ who had a heart attack while he was setting up for the reception, and my assistant and I were able to work together and just kind of talk to another DJ and get him there in place of the first DJ, so that the couple had a seamless reception without having to totally change their music plan. The other option, which the venue suggested, was to play music off of an iPhone that was piped through their sound system, which, you know, obviously wouldn't work. So let's switch to another scenario. So there was a a limousine driver who did not have GPS. So, like, who doesn't have a GPS anymore? I use my phone for my GPS. I know people still have them, the little Garmin, or even have them built into their dashboard. Like, everybody has a GPS. So for a professional transportation company to have drivers that don't have a GPS is kind of ridiculous. But this one was even more ridiculous because the driver was literally going 5 minutes away and he got lost. So going from the bride's mother's house where she was getting ready, the bride was the only one that he was transporting. So she was in the limousine alone, and he made a wrong turn or went past his turn or whatever happened, and he ended up being far out of the way of where he was supposed to go to deliver her to the church. So bride's by herself. She's already nervous because she's about to get married, all that anxiety and anticipation and all those feelings that you feel when you're about to walk down the aisle. Limousine driver gets lost, and now he's 15 minutes away, out of the way. So that means that he has to turn back around and get to the church. Meanwhile, I'm getting everybody ready to walk down the aisle, and there's no bride. The groom and the groomsmen are all ready to, get out there in front of everybody, and there's no bride. So the groom doesn't know why we're running late. Hopefully he wasn't thinking that the bride wasn't going to show up, but just imagine the thoughts that may be going through his mind. So I gave a call to the limousine driver and gave him directions back to the church. Again, don't know why he didn't have a GPS, and he wasn't going far away, so he should have already known the route, or had it printed out or something. So the bride was definitely upset that she was late, but he was able to get her to the church, and we were able to get her down the aisle, and everything worked out fine. But just imagine how she felt. The nervousness got bumped up to like a level 1,000 because she knew that she needed to be at a certain place at a certain time, and it wasn't happening. Another scenario is the cake. So I was talking to one of my interns earlier today who happened to have been decorating for a wedding where her sister was in the wedding party. So she was doing that on Friday, and it wasn't one of my weddings, but it was, interesting to hear her story about this particular venue, and the venue owner wanted to be very involved in everything from the setup to the cake and all these things. So typically, when a bakery delivers a cake to the wedding, they want to just sit it down on a table that's already covered and ready so that it doesn't get moved again. In this particular case, the ceremony was in the same room that the reception was going to be in, so the room had to be flipped. And so to keep the cake from being bumped into or messed up, it was placed in another area until later. So apparently some of the other people who were at the wedding, who were guests, who were helping to get things ready for the wedding, started to talk to each other, and word got around that the venue owner destroyed the cake. Like, they used those words, destroyed the cake. Word got back to the bride and groom. This should never ever happen. So destroying the cake was definitely an exaggeration. It was messed up a little bit in an area that was just turned to a wall, so nobody could see that part of it. So it wasn't destroyed. It was just kind of, smudged or dented or something like that, where the cake was not, as perfect as the rest of the cake in this one area. And it probably is because he was moving the cake and bumped it or something like that. But anyway, the word should not have gotten back to the bride and groom that anything happened. Like, you have to keep these things contained so that you don't cause panic to the people who are already high stressed. Another example of something happening to the cake actually happened with a wedding that I was working on a couple years ago, where it was a lower budget wedding, so they didn't have a bakery deliver the cake. The cake was actually picked up and transported to the reception site, along with some other things like china for the head table and stuff like that. So, long story short, in transit, the china that was for the head table in boxes fell on top of the cake. And so it was just a small round cake that was a tier of a cupcake tower. So cupcakes are built up here and then the cake is set up here. So the dishes fell and smashed the cake. And since it was a small round cake, basically half of the cake was just destroyed and ruined. Because it wasn't a cake that was being made or delivered by one of the bakeries in the area, I had to make a phone call to a different bakery that's close to my office and call in a favor and ask if they could replicate this. So I took a picture of it, sent it to them. They said yes, they could replicate it, but they couldn't deliver it. So part of my team was already at my office, where part of the team was at the reception site. So I had the cake picked up and brought to us at the reception site and put in place, and the bride never knew that it was not the same cake. Like, it was that good of a replication. At the end of the night, I said, after everything was over, you want to hear a funny story? This is what happened. And she was like, oh my God, you didn't even have to do that. So first, yes, I did, because she would have been totally pissed off if she saw that she didn't have a cake, let alone seeing a smashed cake. So yes, I did have to do that. But, just knowing that it was taken care of without her having to do anything and there was no intervention on her part made her feel like I didn't have to do that. So, that's just another reason why you need to have somebody that is available to take care of these things, because everything that could go wrong will go wrong if you don't have somebody to handle it. It's Murphy's Law, how that saying goes. If it can go wrong, it will. And that is exactly what happens. So those are just a couple of examples of times when things went wrong, didn't go according to plan. But I do want to also stress that it's important that you remember that sometimes you're the only one who knows the plan. So, the bride has this dream vision in her mind of what the wedding is supposed to be like. And, you are the only one. Probably a couple other people know, but you're the only one that really knows how things are supposed to be going. And you're the only one who has this vision of perfection in your mind. Your guests don't know what's supposed to happen until it happens. So if you don't let them see you sweat when something goes wrong, they have no idea that it wasn't supposed to go the way that it happened. If you don't start worrying about the place cards or the favors or these small details, they don't know. They're not going to come and ask you why there isn't something happening or why something's not there. They're going to go with the flow, and so should you. It is super important, though, that if you do have somebody who is running the event for you, that you get these things out of your head and into their hands, because if you don't communicate clearly to them about what is supposed to happen or what your vision of the perfect day is, they are left up to their own interpretation. And maybe it just doesn't happen the same way that you originally envisioned that it would. So it's really important that you have some conversations with your person, whether it's your aunt, your wedding planner, the facility manager, whoever it is. Make sure that you have a conversation with them prior to the wedding day, not on the day of the wedding, but prior to the wedding day, to let them know what exactly it is that you expect. If you expect there to be a dove release and they're responsible for making that happen, then you need to let them know that at this particular point in the day, this is when the doves are supposed to be released. Yes, Melanie, communication is key. It is so, so important. And communication in advance. So when you're not high stressed and you're not, responding to an emergency, or you're not reacting to something that happened, definitely, absolutely have to communicate to everybody. So if you don't have a wedding planner who is talking to all of your hired vendors, they're not talking to each other. And so they all have an idea in their mind about what's supposed to happen and how they're playing out the day. So you'll have the photographer has his timeline, the caterer has their timeline, your entertainment, whether it's a DJ or a band, they have their timeline, and their timelines aren't necessarily the same times. So your photographer does not necessarily know what time the first dance is going to happen. Your caterer does not know when the bouquet toss is going to happen. These all have to be tied up together and put into a pretty little bow. But this only happens if there's some communication between all of your hired professionals. So usually that's where I come into play as your wedding planner. I will have an all-inclusive timeline so that everybody is on the same page. So the photographer is not taking pictures of the parents in the courtyard while the DJ is announcing that it's time for the father-daughter dance, or the there's a time where there's supposed to be toasts, say before dinner is served, but the catering staff doesn't know that that's supposed to happen, so they have not poured champagne into anybody's glasses yet. Or the ceremony is going to have a special tribute song sung at a specific time. So the photographer and the videographer maybe need to be at a certain point or at a certain place in the church to be able to capture that person who's singing. Instead of focusing on the bride and groom, they need to switch their attention over this way. All of this stuff needs to be communicated in advance. I can't stress that enough. Communicate in advance, not on the day of the event. I have a little bit of time left to have some questions thrown out at me. So I know that there's a couple people here. Please ask me questions. Hey, Victor. So yeah, just shoot some questions out to me. We talked a little bit about some disasters. I stressed over and over again why it's important to have a point person and why communication is so important. But if you have some other questions, maybe unrelated to what I was just talking about, that you want to ask, shoot them out there to me. Let me know what you're thinking about, and I will absolutely answer the question. I do want to point out that a couple of the people that I know that are on here paying attention to this Q&A live are professionals in different categories. So I will shout out why you should hire these professionals as well. So we have a travel agent. Travel agents are really essential if you're going to be planning an extravagant honeymoon and you're going out of the country, or you're going somewhere where it's supposed to have certain perks and benefits. So a travel agent is actually your liaison with that location or where you're traveling to. And they offer services that you're not going to get online. So yeah, sure, you can go on Expedia and book a trip. But let's just say you're running late and you missed your flight. You can't call somebody at Expedia and say, I missed my flight, now what do I do? But you can call a travel agent and say that. Or you get to your hotel and you find that there's the type of room that you wanted is not the same room that you were booked into. So you have to go to the front desk and have conversations. When you're on your honeymoon, these are not things that you want to be worried about. So you can call your travel agent and let them know that there was a mix-up, and the travel agent will take care of it for you. And a lot of the times when travel agents are involved, they get you better bonuses, perks, little extra things. So it is valuable to use a travel agent whenever you're planning an important trip. Question, how do you handle financial reimbursement when you have to resolve an issue on the day of, like getting that cake fixed? So for that particular event where I had to get that cake fixed, I actually called in a favor, and it wasn't a major deal. It ended up costing me maybe like $20 out of my pocket. So I didn't really worry about that. In other cases where, let's say it was the delivery, the bakery made a mistake. Well, when it's being delivered, they may be able to fix it. or if that venue owner had really destroyed the cake like they said he did, then calling the bakery and saying this is what happened and then working that out later. So sometimes whoever is responsible for making that mistake is the one that should reimburse whoever. So for example, if the venue owner really did destroy the cake and the bakery came to replace it or to fix it and there was a fee involved, the venue owner should be responsible for paying it. It is really a case-by-case instance with some of that stuff, and usually considering what the situation is and when it's happening, like we're in the middle of a wedding, the vendor does not usually request payment on site, but there will be some conversation about it a little bit later. There are some other instances where, maybe you don't have enough alcohol for the bar and somebody has to go and get it. In that case, you need to be able to hand over some cash for that. So if I, as the wedding planner, am doing that, then I will let the couple know that that's something that happened. And if they have it available, I would expect that they paid me for that at that time at the end of the night. If not, then I'll bill them for it later. So it really depends on the situation for financial reimbursements. But that's a really good question, because sometimes there are things that maybe the bride and groom totally forgot about and that they need to have at that point. So that sometimes is an issue. So I'm going to wrap up now because it's almost 2:30. If there's no other questions, then I'm glad that I had some interaction with you guys today. It's a beautiful Sunday, and I hope that you're actually going to be able to get out, considering that it was raining for most of the week. But just so that the rest of you know who are maybe watching this on a recorded message, I am doing this Facebook Live series every Sunday at 2 o'clock. Please decide to join us again, so we can have some more interaction and talk a little bit about some of the things that you might not know about planning your wedding. And as always, if you want to have an individual conversation with me one-on-one right here in my beautiful studio in Hatboro, just go to my website, trilogyeventdesign.com, and click on the schedule a consultation link. You can schedule a 30-minute initial meeting with me so that we can just talk and chat. That is complimentary. I will have coffee or a cocktail to share with you, and we can just kind of sit and talk a little bit about planning your wedding, or how you would like my assistance with that. I also offer wedding coaching, which is for the DIY bride who doesn't necessarily need to have a planner, but needs a little bit of assistance along the way. So that's something that we can talk about during the initial meeting too, in case that's something that you're interested in. So again, visit trilogyeventdesign.com, click on the schedule a consultation link, and I'll see you again here on Sunday at 2 o'clock. Have a fabulous Sunday. Bye-bye.